Evening. I'd like to ask the panel what their opinions are on the assisted dying bill, and is it time to readdress it again?
Thank you very much. Liam MacArthur's assisted dying bill will be debated later this year in the Scottish Parliament before going to vote. We could be the first part of the UK to change legislation here. What do you think?
Well, my sister Kirsty and I have, unfortunately, in the family, had to watch my 92-year-old grandma die from dementia. And she said many years ago, having watched her two sisters go through the same, that she would never want to live like that. I want to be able to choose now, so my family never have to go through what we've gone through. And I know it's too late for my granny, but I just feel animals that I've had have had better dignity than she has.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's a big subject for us this evening. Michael Shanks, where do you stand on this?
Well, can I say I had a remarkably similar situation fairly recently, and it did make me rethink this whole question. And I think that the difficulty for me, I don't have a strong view, I have to say, and that might be surprising for a politician to say this, but the difficulty with the legislation that's come forward in the past, Margaret MacDonald did a power of work on this, and Liam MacArthur's bill, I think, takes it forward a bit more. But we've never quite been able to get to the point where the safeguards for doctors and for others involved in the system are strong enough. And my mum works in palliative care, and she talks about the power of a good death, about actually providing really good palliative care. The challenge is most of our hospices are charity run. They rely on fundraising. A lot of the actual services that go into them require the goodwill of people rather than actually government funding. So there's a real tension, I think, between the two things. The thing that probably makes me slightly more against it at this point is I'm still not clear what the process is that we get to where genuinely people have capacity to make the decision and where doctors are not put in a position where they're potentially signing off something that they're not comfortable with. And so we'd need some sort of process where doctors could opt out. And I think the danger if you have doctors being able to opt out is that you then have a postcode lottery about whether people can access it or not. So unusually, perhaps for a politician, I genuinely am not sure. I think this will come to the UK Parliament at some point as well. It's a devolved issue that the Scottish Parliament will look at. I think it's right that these things are always a free vote. So there's not a party position on it, and there never will be from any of us. I don't think it is a personal decision, and it's a really difficult thing to wrestle with, I think.
Sue Webber, we could be the first part of the UK to take the decision on this. How will you vote?
I think over the last few weeks, I've actually been writing columns in the press, and I was interviewed by the Glasgow Herald, where I have expressed my views publicly on this. Again, there's no party political position on this, and it is a free vote. I came to Parliament having worked in healthcare and maybe had a slightly different view to the view that I have now. I have changed direction, and I am, right now where I'm sitting, as I would not be supporting the assisted dying bill. We all have stories, as you've explained, where we've got and seen someone die badly, and it breaks our hearts, and every one of those stories is a tragedy, and it feels hard to sit here. But at the same time, I've done a lot of work, as Michael said, with the role that hospices play and the role that palliative care plays in our society, and having discussions around death and about death. I think if we funded and resources our hospice settings to what they are, as Michael said, they are funded through charity. They're not funded by the NHS. So that gives you some indication of how we view that part of our lives and the end of our lives. And something maybe a bit more critically, the Scottish Parliament, since I've been an MSP in 2021, hasn't got the best reputation about creating good legislation. And the safeguards, although Liam MacArthur's bill has outlines for 2 medical professionals to be involved, and there appear to be safeguards, there's nothing to stop rogue amendments in future parliaments coming forward that may make it really upsetting to some of the decisions that may be made.
All right. Jim Fairley, you went through with your late brother Andrew a difficult end of life for him, and I hope you don't mind me raising that here this evening. But has that factored into your thinking about this and how you will vote on this?
I am absolutely torn. It's one of these ones that good palliative care is amazing. The people at Corner Hill who looked after my brother were fantastic. But there's also that thing about that dignity in death. And if somebody is lying there who has done so much in their life, and now they're saying, just let it happen, I don't know how we stop them making that decision. But I'm also incredibly wary of the lack of safeguards. And Michael talked about it, he touched on it there. And I'm looking, I've been lobbied, and I genuinely do not know how I'm going to vote on this. If I was using my head as a sheep farmer, it'd be done. No question of doubt about it. If I'm looking at it from my heart as a human, then that becomes a lot harder. So the safeguards that were put in other countries have been eroded, as Sue has talked about. But I don't know how that looks. I don't know how we go through the legislation that Liam MacArthur has brought forward and make sure, because we cannot, as a parliament, bound our successors to what it is that we have done. So I have a real conflict in where I'm going to go with this one. I will vote, I won't abstain, I will definitely vote. It'll be one way or the other. But it's one of these situations where you've got absolute Goliaths like Margaret MacDonald, who was absolutely adamant. This has to happen, because she was living it. But then you've got other people saying, but what about my vulnerable relative that, you know, as somebody else influenced their decision? And it's the other thing that has cropped up on a number of occasions is elderly people feeling as though it's their time because their family feel as though they are burdening their family. And I would hate to be in the position where we've legislated so that somebody can take a decision based on feeling like a burden to somebody else. So it's a horrendous question that we're going to have to answer, and I will make my mind up when the time comes.